back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, October 14th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the Super Chat button in the chat. Click on that. This will help create a super chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show, if you don't do that, is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So it's good to be back. I know it came as a little bit of a surprise to maybe some of you that there was really no show outside of Monday, and that is because I was under the weather for the entire week. The thing that I was dealing with about a month ago came back, so I was dealing with that, and I'm still not 100%, but hopefully we get back to 100%, but we're getting to that point. We're on the other side of it now. So, but yeah, that's what ended up happening last week. So, a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to catch up on, because there were things that happened last week that we'll talk about a little bit today. But we will start off the show by talking about the Lions and the Cowboys, their game yesterday. We'll get into talking about the Commanders and the Ravens, their matchup as well. We'll also get into the crazy game down in New Orleans with the Saints and the Buccaneers. Then we'll also talk about Drake May and his debut. He started for the Patriots, so we'll talk about that game, the Patriots and the Texans. And then we'll get you set for tonight's big AFC East showdown between the Bills and the Jets. And we'll talk about something that the Jets did last week that I wasn't able to talk about because, like I said, I was out. I was sick. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Cowboys-Lions game. And, man, I expected the Lions to win this game. I did not expect it to be like this. 47-9 was the final score of this game. Cowboys didn't even score a touchdown in this game. It was all Lions. And if you remember, you go back to last year late in the season, it was a 1-point game, the final score. It was 21-20. And, the Lions, of course, they went for 2 at the end of the game to go ahead. And there was that whole thing with the tackle not reporting eligible, and it was just this whole thing. And the Lions did not forget about that game because they came in and they ran up and down the field. They ran up the score. They clearly wanted to run up the score here. And yeah, it just, when you look at the Cowboys, last week they beat the Steelers, but I looking at that game, I was like, they did not play good, and the Steelers are 4-2 right now, but, the Steelers, they still have their issues offensively. So I really wasn't overly impressed by the Cowboys win. I don't think many people really were. So going into this game, this was going to be another test. How do you stack up against the Lions, who are one of the best teams in the NFL? And Cowboys are clearly not in the same weight class as the Lions, which, you kind of figured, but I just didn't think it was going to be like this. It's just the Lions had their way. They were doing all these different things. They were having tackles, running routes. I mean, Penei Sewell would have had a touchdown, but they called it back. It's just the Lions had a lot of fun in this game. You could clearly tell for the most part. But I do want to bring up, though, late in the game, Aidan Hutchinson, their star defensive end, got hurt. Fractured his tibia, so he's going to be out the rest of the year. And it was a freak injury. It was you want to look away when they showed they didn't show the replay, but of course it was on Twitter. It's one of those you got to look away moments. And it's just that was, before we get back to the game, that was just a crushing blow for this team, especially defensively, because he is one of the biggest rising stars in the NFL. We talk about T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, who did not play in this game, but Aidan Hutchinson is in that category. He was playing really well this year. He was a one-man wrecking crew, getting after the quarterback, and now he's out, and that is a huge blow for this Lions defense. So, hopefully, and it was a pretty gruesome injury again. Hopefully, he can bounce back from this, and we have, because that injury was significant. But I know Ian Rappaport tweeted out something that he should be good for the start of 2025. But right now, let's just hope that surgery goes well, all that, and he works his way back from there. Because again, he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. But yeah, that was pretty significant. But going back to the game, though, again, it's hard to kind of transition out of that. I know I always say that, but yeah, it just it's hard to move on from that. But hoping for a speedy recovery for him. Anyways, so back to the game, though. Cowboys actually were up 3-0 to start the game. They went 9 plays, 54 yards. Got into field goal range. Brandon Aubrey, he was their offense, and kicked a 34-yard field goal. So that made it 3-0. And then the Lions went right down the field. They scored a touchdown. An impressive run by David Montgomery from 16 yards out to make it 7-3. Cowboys just could not tackle him. They couldn't tackle in general in this game. And then Dak Prescott throws a pick at the Detroit 7, picked off by Brian Branch in the end zone. So the Cowboys so it was like, okay, the Cowboys putting together another drive. They're trying to keep up, and Dak throws a pick. Lions turn that into a field goal. Jake Bates had a good game. Their field goal kicker, 40-yard field goal. So that made it 10-3. Then the Lions made it 7-3. Goff connected with Sam Laporta. They did a little trick play, and that ended up being a 52-yard touchdown to make it 17-3. Then it was 20-3. Then it was 27-3. David Montgomery, another rushing touchdown. Cowboys did kick a field goal before the end of the half to make it 27-6. Then the Lions opened up the third quarter with a touchdown, and that was a 37-yard touchdown to Jameson Williams. And then Aubrey kicked another field goal to make it 34-9. It was a 50-yarder. Lions then scored another field goal. Cowboys fumbled. Lions turned that into a field goal. Another interception by Dak. And the Lions, it looked like it was going to be a pick six, but ended up being down to the 4. And then Goff connected with Amon-Ra St. Brown for a 4-yard touchdown to make it 47-9. This game took forever to finish. Then Cooper Rush came into the game, and he threw a pick. Lions turned it over on downs. Cowboys fumbled to end the game, and that was it. Lions, in terms of their stats, Jared Goff went 18 of 25 for 315 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Hendon Hooker saw a little bit of work, 1 for 2 for 19 yards. Lions ran the ball for almost 200 yards, 184 yards on the ground, 80 by David Montgomery, 63 by Jahmyr Gibbs. Craig Reynolds had 21 yards on the ground in this game. David Montgomery had both rushing touchdowns. Jameson Williams, the leading receiver, 3 receptions for 76 yards and a touchdown. Khalif Raymond had 4 for 73. Tim Patrick, a couple of nice catches in this game. He had 3 receptions for 68 yards. Sam Laporta only had that 1 reception, and that was the touchdown for 52 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a quiet day, 4 for 37, but he did have a touchdown as well. 3 interceptions, off of Cowboys quarterbacks, 2 by Brian Branch and 1 by Kirby Joseph. And then the Lions defense had 4 sacks in the game. And then as for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, 17 of 33, 178 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So I thought, well, in garbage time, the Cowboys, they'll put up a bunch of points and Dak's numbers will look more respectable. But that was not the case here. And Cooper Rush, he went 8 of 11 for 46 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Cowboys really, didn't run the ball because they were playing behind most of the time. Rico Dowdle only had 25 yards. Zeke had 17. CeeDee Lamb had 7 for 89 receiving yards. Jalen Tolbert 4 for 43. Dowdle had 5 for 30. Kevontae Turpin 4 for 24. Cowboys, a couple fumbles, one by Turpin and one by one of their receivers, Ryan Flanor, I think that's how you pronounce it. And then the defense had 3 sacks in the game, but again, it was lopsided all the way around. But yeah, the Lions looked really good. The Cowboys, yeah, they, and I keep on saying throughout, the first, part of the season here, I kept saying, yeah, the Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. They're going to find a way. But, yeah, I'm not really so sure. Because their schedule gets really tough. They go into the bye week, but then they play the 49ers right out of the bye. So, I might pencil that in as a loss. Even though the 49ers have not been the 49ers of last year. I mean, they're still a very good team, but, they still got some issues. But I expect the 49ers to beat the Cowboys when the Cowboys come out of the bye. You got the Eagles coming up. It's not looking good right now. And, this is on Jerry Jones' birthday, this game, and he said he was shocked. I mean, I was definitely surprised by just, how lopsided this game was, but I was not surprised by the result. The Lions are clearly the better team. The Cowboys, they can't run the football. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They're turning the ball over. They're not doing... I mean, the best thing they got going for them is their kicker right now. That's it. So, and this is not something you're going to be able to solve in season. You're going to get DeMarcus Lawrence back. You're going to get Micah Parsons back. You're going to get DeRon Bland back. But it's not really going to help you. Offensively, you don't have any other weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb that scare you. And, running the football, I know Rico Dowdle had a good game last week, but he's not going to do that every week. Zeke doesn't really give you much. You still got Dalvin Cook on the practice squad. Maybe you should give him a chance. It probably is not going to do much, but at least give him a shot. But they have too many issues. And you look at the division, and we'll get into, the Eagles and the Giants later this week. We're not going to talk about them today. But, the Giants had an opportunity to, make some noise and get themselves back in the conversation. Of course, they don't do that. The Eagles, they still don't look great. The best team right now, even in a loss, is the Commanders. That's the best team right now in the NFC East. The Cowboys, I mean, we'll see what happens when they match up against the Commanders, but I think the Commanders really are going to give them a hard time. And, with the Eagles, I mean, it's a toss-up right now because the Eagles are not playing well. It was a hard time for them to even beat the Browns yesterday. So, and the Giants, continue to be a disappointment. So, but, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Again, just great for the Lions, really, other than the Aidan Hutchinson injury, which is huge. So, guys are going to have to step up on the defense. And I think they will. The defense has played a lot better this year. But, you're going to have to find a pass rush in other areas. Guys are going to have to step up. That's the bottom line. So, all right. So, with that being said now, we are going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Commanders and the Ravens. We'll talk about the Ravens win over the Commanders. We'll get into all that when we come back. So, stick around. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about the Ravens-Commanders game from yesterday. The Ravens picking up the win 30-23. And going into this game, Ravens, they were 6.5-point favorite. Then it went up to 7. And that's, what ended up, being the score, basically. Ravens winning by 7. Although my spread pool was 6.5, so of course, taking the Commanders, they did not cover. So that was nice. Although I did do well with my spread pool picks this week. But yeah, this was a good game. This was a good game, but the Ravens here are the better team. And for the Commanders, I mean, look, they really they had a good chance to win this game, but ultimately, the Ravens, they were able to secure the win here. But, so to kind of go through it, the Ravens did get the ball to start the game, and Lamar Jackson did throw a pick. But it was kind of one of those that got deflected and picked off. The Commanders did turn that into a field goal. Seibert kicked a 42-yard field goal to make it 3-0. Then the Ravens did respond to make it 3-3. Justin Tucker kicked a 45-yard field goal. So that made it 3-3, like I said. Then a bunch of punts. Then the Ravens, they put together a touchdown drive. 9 plays, 93 yards, almost 5 minutes of time possession down the field. Derrick Henry from 3 yards out scored to make it 10-3. Commanders did answer. Jane Daniels connected with Austin Eckler for 25 yards on this drive. They got down to the Baltimore 7, and Jane Daniels connected with Terry McLaurin, who's really happy to have a quarterback now. He scored from 7 yards out, so that made it 10-10. Then the Ravens, they responded with another touchdown drive, connected with Nelson Aguilar for 25 yards, 15 to Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers had a good game. And Mark Andrews scored a touchdown from the Washington 13, a 13-yard touchdown pass from Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews. So there you go, Mark Andrews fantasy owners. He's back, at least for this week. Then the Commanders had a blocked field goal. Seibert trying to attempt a 52-yarder, so that got blocked. So it was 17-10 at the half. Then the Commanders, they opened up the second half with a field goal drive. Seibert from 55 yards. He's really been good for them. So that made it 17-13. Ravens then answered with another field goal. Justin Tucker from 32 yards out. Then the Ravens made it a 2-score game. Derrick Henry, a 7-yard touchdown. So that made it 27-13. Then the Commanders put together a touchdown drive of their own. He had 24 yards to Zach Ertz, 14 yards to Terry McLaurin, another 12 to Zach Ertz. And then Daniels connected with Terry McLaurin on 4th and goal from the Baltimore 6. So that made it 27-20. Ravens kicked a field goal, 39-yarder from Justin Tucker. And then Seibert kicked another field goal. Commanders answer, so that made it 30-23. And that was a 49-yarder. And that's all she wrote. The Ravens were able to ice the game. Derrick Henry had a 27-yard carry. And, that's basically all she wrote. Jaden Daniels had a good game. 24 35, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They didn't really run the ball here. Had a hard time establishing the run. There was no Brian Robinson Jr. in this game, so Eckler was the lead rusher, but he only had 9 carries for 21 yards. Zach Ertz was actually the leading receiver for the Commanders. 4 receptions for 68 yards. Noah Brown had 4 for 58. Terry McLaurin 6 for 53 and 2 touchdowns. Eckler had 4 for 47 in the receiving game. 2 sacks for the Washington defense. And then for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson 20 of 26, 323 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And Derrick Henry, I mean, he is really, like, I mean, I've been saying it, since the season started, almost, he's a difference maker on this team. And they got to run the offense through him and Lamar Jackson. They brought Derrick Henry here to, bring this running game to new heights. And he's doing that. Another great game for him. 24 carries, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson had 40 yards on the ground. It's a dynamic duo that they have out of the backfield. And the Ravens, look, they got off to that rough start, starting off the year 0-2. But, it's stabilized now. And, right now they're tied with the Steelers for the division lead in the AFC North. And, the Ravens are back to being the Ravens. That 0-2, I mean, even when they started off 0-2, you're not going to hit the panic meter. You're not going to do that because this team is too good. And, they, with the help of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson playing well yesterday, they secured the win. And then also, Zay Flowers had a good game, 9 receptions, was targeted 9 times, caught all his targets, 9 receptions for 132 yards. Rashad Bateman, 4 for 71. Mark Andrews, 3 for 66 and a touchdown. Isaiah Likely had 2 for 27. Ravens defense, 3 sacks. Justin Tucker went 3 for 3 on field goals. And, yeah, the Ravens improved to 4-2. Commanders drop to 4-2. But I don't think the Commanders really have anything to be ashamed about. This was a good test for them because you look at the teams that they've gone up against so far this year. They did lose to Tampa. They beat the Giants. The Bengals, I mean, last night the defense played well, but their defense is one of the worst in the NFL. But still, that was a statement win there at the time. And then the Browns, I mean, they can't, generate any offense, it seems. They beat them. The Cardinals on the road. Cardinals don't have a very good defense. You saw that again yesterday in Green Bay. But even in a loss, though, I would say this is, obviously when it comes to moral victories, it depends on how you look at it. But the Commanders hung in there, so they do belong. And again, like I talked about with the Cowboys in the last segment, you look at this division. I mean, yeah, the Commanders are clearly the best team, in my opinion. The Cowboys, I mean, they're up and down, but, when they're down, they're really down. When they go up against teams like the Ravens and the Lions, I mean, they are a below-average team. The Eagles, I mean, they have a winning record, but, they're still not playing great. And then you got the Giants, who continue to be the Giants. So the Commanders right now, I mean, they belong. They are, I mean, they're definitely a top 10 team right now. They had opportunities, but, it's going to happen. It's the Ravens. The Ravens are a very good team. They're one of the best teams in the NFL right now. So, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. Now, if they got blown out, then you're like, oh, well, they're not legit. But they hung in there. So, and it's just tough when you got to go up against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. So, and the Ravens' defense has kind of been, they're good. Like, the Ravens are good against the run, not good against the pass. So, but Jaden Daniels played well. Like I said, they hung in there. But, for the Ravens, they just continue to roll. They're playing good football right now. That 0-2 start is a thing of the past. And they continue to win games, and they take on now next week the Buccaneers in Tampa. So that'll be an interesting game. That's on Monday night. We'll talk about the Bucs in the next segment, actually, and that roller coaster of a game. And then for the Commanders, they take on the Carolina Panthers, who continue to lose. So that could be a good bounce back game for the Commanders. And just to kind of look at their schedule even further, you got the Panthers at home, you got the Bears at home, which that'll be an interesting game. Caleb Williams is starting to really find it. So you got him. You got the number 1 and number 2 overall picks going at it in a couple weeks. Then you're at the Giants, home against the Steelers, at the Eagles, home against the Cowboys, home against the Titans. Titans, man, that's a team that's going to be looking for a new quarterback. Then they got the bye week 14 at the Saints, home against the Eagles, home against the Falcons, and then at the Cowboys. So there's definitely a decent amount of wins in there. Right now, this team is on track to win, I would say, at least 10 games. But we still got a long way to go. They got to get Brian Robinson Jr. back. Once they get him back, they'll be able to have a better running game. Eckler's been... he didn't really want to run the football yesterday, but the week before against Cleveland, he had that big run. But they got a good rushing attack. Terry McLaurin's making plays. Zach Ertz is making plays. And, they look good. They look good, even in a loss. They still kept it close. But, yeah, the NFC East, just continues to be a weird division. And there's probably, once again, not going to be a repeat champion. So, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys, once again, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to click the Super Chat button in the chat. Any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast, you'll create a Super Chat with that. I will acknowledge it, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And then also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the Buccaneers-Saints game from yesterday, a wild one in New Orleans. So, make sure to stick around, and we will be back. We will be right back once again here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Buccaneers-Saints game from yesterday, and it was a wild game. It was a wild game. The Buccaneers, they went up 17-0, right? And, they had Spencer Rattler, 5th-round rookie draft pick, starting for Derek Carr, because Derek Carr got hurt in the game against the Chiefs, and he hurt his oblique, so he's going to be out multiple games. And the Buccaneers, they jumped out, like I said, to a 17-0 lead. And I thought, well, this game's going to be a blowout. Well, it still ended up being a blowout. But then all of a sudden, the Saints, they start to come back into this game. So, yeah, it was the Buccaneers, they went right down the field on their first drive. Baker Mayfield connects with Chris Godwin for a 4-yard touchdown. Then there was a fumble in this game, on this drive. Rattler connected with Chris Olave, who ended up fumbling, and he ended up leaving the game with a concussion. And Antoine Winfield Jr. Returned it for 58 yards. So that made it 14-0. Then the Buccaneers put together a field goal drive. So, yeah, it was 17-0. Saints, they put up points. A 42-yard field goal by Groupie to make it, like I said, 17-3. Then the Bucs punted. But Rashid Shaheed took back that punt for a touchdown, a 54-yard punt return. So, yeah, that made it 17-10. And then Baker Mayfield just started throwing interceptions. Threw one on the Bucs next drive. Saints turned that into a field goal. Then Baker threw a pick again. Saints turned that into a touchdown. A Rattler connected with Means for a 10-yard touchdown. Then the Bucs answered. Had Ryan Miller, a 39-yard reception. And then Baker later to Sean Tucker, who had a big game. There was no Rachaad White in this game. Sean Tucker had a big game. A 36-yard touchdown reception by Sean Tucker to make it 24-20. Then the Saints, they responded. 41-yard pass play. Rattler connected with Foster Moreau. And then Kamara from 4 yards out scored a touchdown to make it 27-24. Then Baker throws another pick, but the Saints punted. And that was the score at the half. So after all that, the Saints were winning this game. And then they did not score again after that. Both teams exchanged punts. Bucs finally put together a touchdown drive. Baker Mayfield connected with Chris Godwin for a 55-yard touchdown. And it was one of those plays where, I saw Baker connect with Chris Godwin. I'm like, all right, they got a first down or whatever. And then Godwin just did not get tackled. And he ended up scoring. So, yeah, Bucs went up. Rattler threw another pick. The Bucs turned that into a touchdown. Baker connected with Cade Otton. They went for 2, didn't get it. Saints punted again. The Bucs scored yet another touchdown. Bucky Irving from 1 yard out to make it 44-27. Rattler threw another pick, and the Bucs scored again. Sean Tucker had a 36-yard run, and then he had a 5-yard touchdown run later in that drive. So final score, 51-27. Baker Mayfield, a mixed bag, 24-36, 325 yards, 4 touchdowns, but he also did have 3 interceptions. The Bucs ran the ball for almost 300 yards in this game. Sean Tucker, 136 rushing yards and a touchdown. Bucky Irving had 81 yards and a touchdown. Sterling Shepard had 31 rushing yards. Baker Mayfield at 29. Chris Godwin continues to have a great season. 11 receptions for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sean Tucker, 3 for 56 and a touchdown. Ryan Miller, 1 for 39. Mike Evans was quiet. Usually against the Saints, he doesn't go off. He only had 2 for 34. He was a little banged up in this game also. And then there were 5 sacks in the game by the Bucs defense. So, yeah, it was, again, if Baker doesn't turn the ball over, this, Saints might have put up maybe, 10, 13 points. Spencer Rattler, 22 of 40, 243 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Alvin Kamara, 13 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. Foster Moreau was their leading receiver. He had 2 for 54. Juwan Johnson, their other tight end, 3 for 48. No Taysom Hill in this game. Like I said, Olave got hurt. Cameron Jordan had an interception in this game for the Saints. But, yeah, Saints had 3 picks off of Baker, and they only had 1 sack, their defense. So, the Saints, after starting off the year 2-0, they are now 2-4. And they take on the Broncos on Thursday. Sean Payton will be making his return for the first time. Their former head coach. Again, very weird game. There's a lot of positives you could take away from it if you're the Bucs. There was no Rachaad White, but Sean Tucker, that's another running back, another weapon. Now with what he was able to do yesterday. Bucky Irving continues to run the football well. It was funny watching the game yesterday, and you just see him with the number 7. You think of Leonard Fournette, a young Leonard Fournette. But the ground game, very effective, and that's what they should have stuck to when they were up 17-0. But, with Baker Mayfield, you're going to be airing it out. And it's just, unfortunately for him, he could have costed his team the game. But that was not the case. The score at the half, you would have thought it was the final score of the game. And the Saints scored all of their points in the second quarter. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. All their points were scored in the second quarter, and then they didn't score after that. So, but you know what? The Bucs were able to get the win. And this game was very important because looking at the Bucs' schedule coming up, they have the Ravens next week. Then they have the Falcons at home. Then they have the Chiefs. They got to go to Arrowhead. And then they got the 49ers at home. That is a brutal stretch coming up. That's why losing that game last week to the Falcons, that was tough. Because at least, if you're 5-1, okay, you could afford to lose some of these games. But I don't think the Bucs are going to go winless with what they have coming up on their schedule. I think they win. I'm going to say they win at least one of those games. So that gives you 5 wins, and then if you lose to the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the 49ers, you're at 500. But then when you come out of the bye, you're at the Giants, you're at the Panthers, home against the Raiders, at the Chargers, at the Cowboys, home against the Panthers, home against the Saints. So really after that stretch from week 7 to week 10, then they could get back on track. But let's see what they do. I don't think the Bucs are a pushover by any means. They did go on the road and beat the Lions this year. So it's not like they haven't beaten anybody. And playing in New Orleans is a tough place to play. But yeah, so this was very important that they won this game. But yeah, it's one of those things though, like that little that blip that Baker Mayfield had during the game, that's what I worry about against some of these better teams. And I don't think it's going to happen. But you also did see the Bucs last year. They got off to a good start, and then the middle of the season they struggled. And, now you're getting to that point in the middle of the season, and you got, 4 tough games coming up. So is it going to be like last year where, you go on that losing streak, or are you going to say, no, that's not happening, and you're going to win some of these games? Like I said, I think they win at least one of them. But, they got the Ravens at home, they got the Niners at home, and the Niners haven't been great this year. The Falcons, they got at home. I think maybe they get revenge for that game last week. And then the Chiefs in Arrowhead is, it's going to be tough. But, Baker knows how to play in that stadium. The Browns, when he was with the Browns, they almost won that playoff game. And then they had that Week 1 matchup the following year, which they almost won as well. But, again, almost doesn't really count. So, yeah. And then after that, you got the schedule kind of softens up. And then for the Saints, look, after the first 2 weeks, you thought, like, okay, maybe the Saints got something going this year. And it's just, that was not the case. That's kind of evaporated pretty quickly. And now with Derek Carr being out, this, the season's going to continue to spiral. And not in the Saints' favor. So, unfortunately for them, the Panthers, they continue to lose games. So, the Saints right now are in 3rd place. Right now, you got the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Those are the top 2 teams in the division. And that's going to make the game in a couple weeks huge. Because the Falcons won again yesterday. So, yeah, right now that looks like what the division is coming down to is between those 2 teams. But, you got to like the Bucs rushing attack. You get Rachaad White back. You got him. You got Bucky Irving. And then now Sean Tucker. Chris Godwin continues to have a good year. Mike Evans was quiet, but, he's going to have big games coming up. Cade Otton has been decent for them these last couple weeks. And Baker continues to, he played well at certain points, but overall, his overall game, you give him maybe like a B-, C+, just because of the turnovers. The turnovers were bad. But you know what? Still threw for over 300 yards, had 4 touchdowns. So, it kind of evened out a little bit. And the team got the win. So the defense, I think, is probably the bigger concern. It's nice to see that Antoine Winfield Jr. was back. So, once they get guys healthy on the defensive side of the ball, then the defense will hopefully be, at full strength, and they'll be playing better. But and they're going to need them against these better teams that they got coming up on the schedule. So, but listen, you'll take these divisional games. These games are huge. Again, they already lost to the Falcons, but you beat the Saints on the road. I know with a rookie quarterback, but still, you take those and you go from there. So, but yeah, very weird game. Buccaneers were still able to pick up the win. And again, got a huge game next week against the Ravens, so we'll see how that goes. But let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know. Saints dropped to 2-4. Bucks, they improved to 4-2 on the season. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about another rookie quarterback. We'll talk about Drake May and his debut. We'll talk about the Texans Patriots game as a whole, how that game went down, and how Drake May looked. Is it encouraging signs? What's the assessment? We'll get into all that when we come back from our next break, and then after that, we'll preview the game for tonight between the Jets and the Bills, and then that'll wrap up the show for the day. All right, so that is what we will take a break now. So once again, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows. Available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Texans-Patriots game from yesterday. And yeah, the Texans dominated this game. I was a little skeptical because the Texans really have not been overly impressive this year. They've been good, but they have not blown teams out in their wins. In week 2 against the Bears, Caleb Williams' second career start, they only won by 6 points. The Texans did. The Colts, they've been up and down. Joe Flacco did get a win yesterday. They only beat the Colts by 2. But that's a divisional game. And, the Bills, they beat them. But the Bills, they were up and now they're down. And we'll see what happens tonight. But yeah, the Texans haven't been overly impressive. And, they were missing Nico Collins. However, they did get back Joe Mixon. And Joe Mixon was awesome yesterday. 13 carries, 102 yards, 1 touchdown. Also had a receiving touchdown in this game. He picked up right where he left off in week 1. And that's encouraging. And C.J. Stroud didn't throw for a ton of yards. He did throw a pick in this game, but he had 3 touchdowns. So, he did what he was supposed to do. Kind of looking at the game summary. So the Texans, they went right down the field on their first drive. And Stroud connected with Tank Dell, who had a good game, a 2-yard touchdown. That made it 7-0. Patriots punted on their first drive. Texans put together another touchdown drive. C.J. Stroud connected with Joe Mixon for a 10-yard touchdown. That made it 14-0. Then Drake May threw his first career interception. And then Fairbairn missed the field goal. Then Stroud later in the game threw a pick. But the Patriots did nothing with it. A lot of punts. And then the Patriots, right before the end of the first half, Drake May connected with Booty for 40 yards. And that was his first NFL touchdown pass. And that was a good throw. So that was the good. So you had the bad and you had the good. Then the Patriots, they opened up the second half and Drake May was sacked, lost the ball. See, this was probably not the game to start him, was against this Texans defense, but that's what they decided to do. And the Texans, they turned that into a touchdown. Stroud connected with Stephon Diggs for a 10-yard touchdown, and there was a penalty for taunting. These taunting penalties are so just, I mean, why? Can the players have a little bit of fun, at least? But yeah, 21 to, I didn't see what it was exactly, but I'm sure it was something that really wasn't that big of a deal, but the officials are going to call it. So yeah, so it was 21-7. Patriots punted again. Texans put together a field goal drive. Fairbairn kicked a 39-yard field goal. That made it 24-7. Another fumble, this time by Austin Hooper. And the Texans turned that into a field goal. Fairbairn, 46-yarder. Then the Patriots scored a touchdown. 30-yard pass play to Hunter Henry, and then Drake May connected with Hunter Henry for a 6-yard touchdown. So that made it 27-14. Texans punted, and then Drake May threw another pick trying to hit Antonio Gibson. Texans turned that into a touchdown. Joe Mixon from 20 yards out, make it 34-14. Then the Patriots put together a touchdown drive of their own. Drake May connected with Demario Douglas for a 35-yard touchdown. So that made it 34-21. And then the Texans put together a touchdown drive. Dameon Pierce, 54-yard run. So they got him back and Joe Mixon back. So that's big for this rushing attack. Cam Akers did okay for them, but getting both of these guys back. I mean, Dameon Pierce really hasn't been a factor recently, but that was big for him, a confidence booster. And yeah, the Texans get the win, 41-21. Like I said, Stroud 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 192 yards passing. Joe Mixon 102 yards and a touchdown. Dameon Pierce had 76 yards on the ground, a touchdown. The Texans as a whole ran the ball for almost 200 yards, 192. Stephon Diggs, 6 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. Tank Dell, 7 for 57 and a touchdown. Joe Mixon, 2 for 30 and a touchdown. Dalton Schultz, 4 for 27. And the Texans defense, 3 sacks. 3 sacks by Will Anderson Jr. and then 1 by Danielle Hunter. And like I said, Fairbairn went 2 for 3 on field goals. And then let's talk about Drake May. So, yeah, it was a mixed bag. And, you're not expecting him to come out and, be flawless. And especially, with the situation that he's in, too. I mean, the Patriots, it's not great right now. The offensive line's not good. They didn't really run the football yesterday. Ramondre Stevenson was out. You don't really have a ton of weapons. But, you know what? He did show you something. Had the 3 touchdown passes. And it's not like, they were little, dump-off passes that went to the end zone. I mean, these were, passes that, the one to Booty. That was a good throw. And obviously the long one to Demario Douglas, who finished on the day with 6 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. All things considered, I mean, you'll take it. And, obviously don't want to see him getting hit. But, again, this Patriots offensive line is not great. So, but, you'll take it. You will definitely take it. I mean, maybe you would have waited another week before starting him, but they decided to do that. And now he'll be taking on the Jaguars in London. So we'll see how he does there. Jaguars, that was an ugly loss yesterday to the Bears. But, 243, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. I mean, not terrible for a debut. I mean, it's, again, a mixed bag. That's really how you got to look at it. Patriots only ran the ball for 82 yards yesterday. Demario Douglas, 92 yards. Booty had 59. Henry, 41 receiving yards and a touchdown. Antonio Gibson had 3 for 24. Couple fumbles in this game. So, yeah, 3 turnovers by Drake May. But, again, one of them is because of the offensive line not being able to protect him that well. Patriots defense, only 2 sacks. So, I mean, look, the Texans did what they were supposed to do. They went in, they beat a rookie quarterback. And now next week, this is going to be one of the best games of Week 7. And unfortunately, it's, not in prime time. You got the Texans taking on the Packers in Lambeau. That is going to be a fun game. Really looking forward to that. And like I said, the Patriots, for them, they will be taking on the Jaguars in London. And, the Jaguars, they're 1-5. Patriots are 1-5. So, yeah, we're giving the people a good matchup over there. But, yeah, like I said, mixed bag for Drake May. And look, I mean, they got to do a better job of protecting him, because you don't want to see him getting hurt behind that offensive line, and that was one of the reasons why, a lot of people were like, leave him out, because you don't want to see him going in, coming in and taking a bunch of hits, but that's what's going to happen. But then you feel bad for Jacoby Brissett, because Jacoby Brissett was getting beat up so far this year. So, but somebody's got to stand back there. So, Patriots got a lot of work to do with this roster, but, at least, for the moment, it looks like, hey, you know what? You might have something with Drake May. And they should, because, they took him with the 3rd overall pick. So. But we'll see what happens when they take on the Jaguars in London. Should be a lot of fun. Should be a lot of fun. But yeah, the Texans, they did what they were supposed to, and let's see now how they match up against the Packers. I mean, they went up against the Vikings, and that didn't go so well. They got blown out. Packers, they look good. Jordan Love looks really good. So, and the Packers defense looked good too yesterday. So, let's see what the Texans can do against them in Lambeau. But look, I still think the Texans are a good team. They are. It's just, I got to see them pick up a signature win. And so far, you look at the schedule, and again, they beat the Colts, they beat the Bears. The Bears are looking better now. But, they beat those two teams, the Bills, the Jaguars. I mean, the Bills was a good win. The Jaguars, they only beat by 4 points. And then the Patriots are not very good either. So, if they could go on the road and beat the Packers, I'll be impressed by that. Yes, because they got the Packers, then they got the Colts, at the Jets, home against the Lions. I can't wait for that game. That's on Sunday Night Football, Week 10. That's November 10th. Then they got the Cowboys, Titans, Jaguars, bye week. And then to conclude the season, the final 4 weeks, they got the Dolphins, which I would imagine Tua's back by then. At the Chiefs, home against the Ravens, and then at the Titans. So, we'll see what happens. But you know what? They're 5-1, and, they're running away with this division. They are running away with this division. Nobody's catching up with them. And right now, they're locked into at least for the moment, locked into the 2 seed. You got the Chiefs at 5-0. We're on a bye. You got the Texans, Ravens, and Bills. And speaking of the Bills, we're going to talk about them in the final segment here when we come back from our next break. But let me know what you guys think about this game. How'd you think Drake May did? What were your impressions on the game? Joe Mixon, good to have him back for the Texans, picked up where he left off. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, we're going to talk about the Bills. We're going to talk about them and the Jets. Both looking to pick up a win. Both teams have lost their last 2 games. This is a big game tonight. And we'll get into also some of the changes that the Jets made last week when I was out. We'll get into all that when we come back from our final break. And yeah, it should be a fun game tonight, I would imagine. But yeah, this is there's a lot riding on this game tonight. There really is, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that is what we will get into when we come back from our final break of the show. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the Jets-Bills game for tonight. A massive game in the AFC East. And whoever wins this game is in first place. I mean, the Bills right now are in first place, but if the Jets win, with everything that has gone on, they would be in first place. So let's kind of get into it. But first, actually, let's get into what happened last week. So, of course, I was out. And the Jets actually ended up making a coaching change. They made more than just that. They fired Robert Saleh. Let him go. And my thing is this. I'm surprised by the timing of it. Because it's just, I feel like at this point, it's like, why are you deciding to do it now? Well, I get why you're doing it now, because you need to do something, because you can't have this team spiral out of control, because this could be your only chance of getting to a Super Bowl at the moment. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but that's just how they view it, or how Woody Johnson views it. So, yeah, the timing of it, I was like, all right. If they were going to make a coaching change, they should have did it before the season started. They should have let Saleh go, they should have cleaned house, and did something else. But they didn't do that. They went into the season with Saleh, and now he's gone. And what was interesting is that now when it comes to Nathaniel Hackett, Saleh was going to, relieve him of his duties as a play caller. And then he gets let go. But Nathaniel Hackett will not be calling plays. It's going to be Todd Downing. He's going to be calling plays. And Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, now he steps in as the interim head coach. And Aaron Rodgers and Woody Johnson supposedly had a meeting before Saleh was let go. And, many people are saying, well, they were definitely talking about Saleh, but apparently they weren't. Rodgers says, he's not the reason that Saleh got fired, and he was blindsided by it. Saleh was blindsided by the firing. But, of course, people are going to say that Rodgers definitely had something to do with it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I believe. I'm just going to say we have no idea. We have no idea whether he had any input on that or he didn't have any input on it. But, I mean, when the owner and the quarterback of the franchise are meeting, and you're telling me Robert Saleh didn't come up, that's a little, that's a little odd to me. Saleh definitely had to come up. But I'm not gonna sit here and say it was one thing or the other. But I do understand people's perception of it. Like, probably did talk about, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. But needless to say, though, Saleh's not the head coach anymore. And he was not a great head coach. He's a great defensive-minded guy, but just didn't really have a grasp of the offense. And, sorry, I got something in my eye. But anyways, didn't really have a grasp of the offense. And, look, I mean, you're not going to be able to get an offensive-minded head coach in. I mean, look, you had to promote whoever you had. We saw something similar to, with Adam Gase. They let him go, and Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator, took over. That's basically what's happening here. Although this Jets team has very high expectations. This is a team that people picked to go to the Super Bowl. I didn't. I just had them winning the AFC East. And this is a monster game tonight. So, if they could win that game, everything that's happened, you're in first place. So, we'll see what happens. But let's kind of get into the game. So, both teams are struggling right now. The Bills, I mean, they looked like they were the best team in football at one point. Although you did kind of look at some of their wins and you're like, well, they should win those games. But the wheels have kind of fallen off the last couple of weeks. They lose that game to the Ravens where they got absolutely dominated from start to finish. Derrick Henry ran all over them. And then last week you lose a tough game to the Texans. And Josh Allen got banged up. A lot of guys got banged up. James Cook is questionable for this game tonight. Khalil Shakir is questionable for this game. He didn't play last week, and he's a good receiver for them. So if you're missing both of them, I mean, that's going to be tough against a defense that Josh Allen has had a problem with. So, the Bills could be shorthanded going into this game. And then for the Jets, that game against the Vikings was rough. Rodgers threw 3 picks. They really didn't protect him that well. And, the Jets came up short there, and they've lost their last 2. They lose to the Vikings. They lose to the Broncos the week before. They're looking for a win. And like I said, whoever wins this game is going to be in sole possession of first place. So, this is a monster game for both teams. Now, looking at the matchup, looking at the league rankings for both teams here. So, all right, here we go. So, Jets are averaging 225.8 passing yards per game, which is 19th. The Bills are 26th, averaging 190. And you would think with Josh Allen they'd be throwing the ball more. But, he didn't throw the ball that much last week against the Texans. Then, in terms of rushing yards per game, the Bills are 14th. The Jets are 30th, which you would have thought with Breece Hall, they'd be running the ball effectively right now. But they just haven't. And then the Jets are 25th in points per game, and the Bills are 5th. Then defensively, the Jets are giving up an average of 161.2 passing yards per game. They're 16th against the run. They're giving up an average of 119.2 rushing yards per game, and they're 6th in points allowed. The Bills' defense is 11th in points allowed, 26th against the run. They're giving up an average of 140 rushing yards per game, and they're 12th against the pass, giving up an average of 215 passing yards per game. So, can the Jets establish a run tonight? Establish a running game tonight. You got Breece Hall, you got Braylon Allen, who looks like a good player for them. Take some pressure off of Rodgers, because Rodgers is banged up. And the Jets got to do a better job protecting him. That Morgan Moses injury has, definitely played a role in that. Because the line was doing a good job, and then he gets hurt, and, Rodgers getting hit a lot more. So, got to do a better job of protecting him. And Rodgers got to, get back to, look like the Rodgers from the Patriots game. Get back to that. Find your playmakers. Allen Lazard, and, I say Allen Lazard first. Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, Mike Williams has had some big catches for them. Tyler Conklin's been okay for them. And the defense just got to continue its thing against Josh Allen. Get turnovers, put pressure on him. And I really do like the Jets' chances tonight, believe it or not. Because it's one of those things, when the head coach gets fired mid-season, all of a sudden the team, there's a little bit of energy. Maybe that happens here. Nothing will surprise me when it comes to this game. If the Bills win, okay. If the Jets win, it doesn't surprise me. And I got the graphic up from last year when Xavier Gibson ran back the punt return in overtime. And it's the Jets and the Bills on Monday night in MetLife, and the last time that happened, Aaron Rodgers got hurt. So, that's definitely going to be talked about tonight on the broadcast. So, but, I expect both quarterbacks to make plays. Josh Allen, I think, is going to have to do a little bit more. Like, if you got no James Cook tonight, it's really going to be on you. So, and the Bills' offense last week against the Texans, it was a mixed bag. So, and Josh Allen got hurt. Josh Allen clearly got knocked out last week. His head slammed against the turf and, came back into the game. I don't know how he came back into the game, but he did. And, he finished it up. But, yeah, that was a scary situation there, too. So, but, yeah, it's going to be on Josh Allen, especially if James Cook is out to get it done. But, yeah, last year against the Jets in MetLife, I think he threw 3 picks. So, but yeah, this is I keep saying it, this is a huge game. But I'm going to take the Jets here partly because I have to, because I have them winning the division, and I still need that to happen. But I don't feel great about it. But look, they usually play well. The Jets defense gives Josh Allen a hard time, and I think that's going to continue here. It's going to be on the offense. Rodgers, what are you going to do after a 3-picks game, 3-interception game? How is he going to play? We'll have to wait and see. But the offensive line is going to have to protect him, and like I said, they're going to have to run the football because they just have struggled to do that. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to say the Jets win, low-scoring game. I'm going to say they win 20-17. I think it's low-scoring, but the Jets get a win here. And after everything that's happened, they would be in first place. So let me know what you guys think, though. Who do you think wins tonight? Let me know in the comments. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, apologize for, being out for a week almost. But like I said, we're getting better. And, hopefully we're 100% soon. But, yeah, make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe. Make sure to check out all the other videos. Give the other show some love, like I always say. And, that's basically all the time that we have for today. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the game tonight. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn.